The recent furor over alleged xenophobia against African immigrants in Guangzhou in China has spurred a flurry of diplomacy. Africans living in the Chinese city allege ill treatment and discrimination as China relaxed down and increased vigilance against imported cases of COVID-19. Yesterday, the African Union Commission said it had spoken to the Chinese foreign minister about the issue. Here at home, the international relations minister, as you've just heard, Naledi Pandor, has dismissed the suggestion of tensions between Pretoria and Beijing. Speaking at the handover ceremony of the personal protective equipment from the Chinese government, Dr. Pandor said she'd be assured that action has been taken. SABC News reporter Hasina Gori now joins us. Good evening, Hasina, and welcome to The Full View. Did the minister indicate what action has been taken by the Chinese government?
What they did mention, and as you said, there was no tension. She reiterated that a few times, saying that they were investigating. And from what they were told, the cases that they actually heard about were those that came through the media, and not that any of them that they actually heard of. And it was only one specific South African case that she had heard of through various media channels. And what she said was that the action was that the Foreign Ministry was investigating what has been happening and putting measures into place to ensure that this does not continue to happen as China does become more stringent with their exported and imported cases of COVID-19 into the country.
Any word from the Chinese ambassador who was there on this particular matter?
This particular matter, he was very silent on. He didn't make any mention specifically to it. What he did reiterate was that there was quite a friendly and a cordial relationship between both Pretoria and Beijing. He indicated that South Africa assisted China when the pandemic first began, and in February he basically reiterated that they've been cordial to each other throughout this COVID-19 infection rate, and this was the second consignment that was coming through to South Africa when it came to aid, and that a third one was coming through. So it was basically his message that he was saying today, and not really much touching on any of the allegations that were made.
Was there any indication during this press briefing at all that the Chinese government is assisting other African states during this particular period?
From what we heard from the ambassador was that 54 other African countries, whether or not they had diplomatic relations with China, were also getting assistance. There was PPE, protective gear that was being sent, and aid from either the national government of the People's Republic of China or from other organizations, such as, they said, some businesses, such as the Alibaba chairman, who was giving donations to various countries, including South Africa. There was also the telecommunication brand Huawei, who also donated, and a few others. So there was the message coming through that they were assisting much of Africa, and that they were planning to continue to do that, whether or not these countries had diplomatic relationships with them.
When it comes to South Africa, apart from the PPEs that were donated, was there any conversation that was had around the expertise that China has in trying to curb the spread of the virus, particularly speaking about what happened in Wuhan, and the ambassador speaking about how they've lifted the lockdown in Wuhan and people have started their normal lives again?
So what we heard specifically when it came to skills and the medical care that will be needed to help us get to that point that Wuhan is at right now was that from Dr. William Keys, as well as from the ambassador, was that they had long conversations and webinars between the two countries, both provincial mayors as well as heads of department and medical experts, who sat through and went through training and learning from that experience to ensure that they can, curb the rate of infections here in South Africa, similar to what was done in China. So a lot of skill sharing between the two countries, not just with regards to protective gears and medical assistance, but also just that skills and that will be needed, and the steps that they took to get where they are now 2 months later.
Thank you so much for that. Hasina Gori there joining us post that press briefing that was taking place at the OR Tambo International Airport.